Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Hi, this is Lynda Lippin, and I would like to welcome you to my Pilates fundamental exercise series for lower back pain. Please make sure to see your physician and be cleared to do exercise before undertaking this program. You can do these exercises daily, once or twice a day, for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Then you should do the exercises at least 2 to 3 times a week, once a day, to maintain the strength and flexibility and hopefully the back pain-free life that you will now be able to live. Begin lying on your back in comfortable clothing, no shoes, with your knees bent and your feet hip bone width apart. Try to do these exercises lying on a mat or a folded up blanket or several towels to cushion your spine and your bones from the floor. Begin simply by breathing. Breathing in through the nose and out through a relaxed mouth. On each breath, really thinking about moving and expanding through your rib cage as much as you can. Remember here that your rib cage starts at your throat, your collarbones are resting on your rib cage, and extends all the way down to the beginning of your waistline. The ribs move to the front, to the side, and to the back to expand in all directions. So as you're breathing on each inhale, I want you to relax the muscles in your torso, relax the muscles in your abdomen, relax the muscles in your chest, back, and shoulders, and let your whole rib cage fill with air from the bottom all the way up to the top at your throat. And on each exhale, I want you to contract from your pelvic floor like you're going to stop going to the bathroom. Let the abdominal muscles pull in. Let your rib cage pull in. Let your diaphragm contract and get all the air out of your lungs. Inhaling again, relaxing everything, expanding the ribs front, side, and back with as much air as you can. And on your exhale, contracting from the pelvic floor, letting the abdominal muscles pull in around your waistline like a corset. The ribs pull down, the diaphragm pulls up, and all the air comes out. Repeat this breathing several times, inhaling and exhaling, feeling the movement of your ribs like bellows, helping that air to get in and out. And now start to add some movement of your pelvis to this breathing. So now as you exhale, you're going to tip your hip bones down towards the floor and your pubic bone up towards the ceiling. Your lower back will come down to the mat and your tailbone will lift up a little bit. Keep your rib cage down. As you inhale, go in the opposite direction. Lift your hip bones, send your tailbone and your pubic bone down towards the floor, and let your lower back lift off. Come back through the center as you exhale and contract the abs and go into that posterior pelvic tilt again. And inhaling, lifting the lower back, dropping the tailbone, lifting the hip bones, and coming into an anterior pelvic tilt. Exhale back through the flattening of the lower back and the lifting of the pubic bones. Inhale down and into the arch. And go in between this tuck and the arch. Just a few more times, feeling the muscles in your lower back work, lengthening and shortening. And then come back to the middle so that you're in between those two extremes. Note in this middle position that your lower back might not be all the way down on the mat, and that's okay. Your lower back is indeed supposed to curve forward a little bit Then your rib cage curves back a little bit and will be heavier on the mat. Then your neck curves forward again. So what you should feel on the mat heavily are your tailbone, the base of your skull, and the middle of your rib cage. Your neck might not be all the way down on the mat, and that's fine, and your lower back shouldn't be all the way down on the mat. You may feel like your lower back is very arched up in this position, but trust me, this is your neutral pelvis, and you want to feel that. This is the best position for your spine, and it's the position where the muscles that support the spine and the vertebrae work the best to keep you stable. On your next exhale, I want you to let your right knee fold in towards your chest, just lifting the right foot and letting that right knee come in. Now make sure as you're lifting that right knee that you're not flattening your lower back, lifting up your tailbone, or lifting one hip up higher off the ground than the other. The object of the game is to move the leg purely from the hip joint and keep everything else stable and down. And then lower that leg. Switch legs, exhaling, bringing the left knee in. Again, the object of the game is the same. It's to stabilize that torso while you're moving the leg and lower it back down. Keep alternating legs several times in this manner, alternating side to side. Be aware of the pelvis, that the hip bones aren't dropping down towards the floor, that your hips aren't lifting up towards your shoulder, and that you're not flattening your lower back down at all. Your lower back just stays out of it, and you move your legs. Remember here that the hip joint itself is very low. It's in line with your pubic bones, not your hip bones. So there's no need for the hip bones and the lower back to move in order to move your legs. Now bring the right knee in towards your chest and keep it there. And on your exhale, bring your left knee in to join it. Try not to tighten your abdominal muscles, just keep them pulling in and up, keep using that pelvic floor. And then alternate feet, dropping one leg down to the floor and bringing it back in, and then the other. Inhale to lower, exhale to bring the knee back in towards your chest or rib cage. Do this a few times, feeling the stability of the pelvis, feeling the work of the abdominals, and keeping your pelvis and your rib cage stable on that mat as you move your legs. And then just lower your left foot down to the mat and leave it there. Bring your right hand onto your right knee. Really hold on to the top of your knee at your kneecap, and you're going to use your right arm to stir the thigh bone around in the hip socket. Make sure as you're moving the leg that again you're not moving your hips, your pelvis, or your lower back. Everything stays down on the mat. Your arm moves and your leg moves, and that's it. As you're moving and breathing, pay attention to your range of motion. If your hips start to move and lift, you need to make the range of motion smaller. I promise you that as your pelvis gets more stable, your range of motion will in fact get bigger. But if you keep your range of motion big when you're unstable in your lower back, you'll never get the stability and your range of motion will stay the same. And then go in the other direction, still breathing, still letting the arm and just the leg move, keeping the torso stable and together as you rotate the hip around in the socket. Lower your leg down and switch legs, bringing the left knee in, your left hand on top of your knee, keeping the length of your spine again and the hips even side to side. and start to stir that left thigh bone around in the hip socket. Again, you're going maybe 6 to 8 times, and then reversing the direction, still breathing, still keeping the tail down, the pelvis stable, and those abdominals engaged in order to keep your torso together. And then lower that left leg down. Now, keeping your arms down and your feet down, keep the space between your feet. You're going to let your right knee flop over to the right side, just flop towards the floor. And then let your left knee flop over towards it. Your left hip will now lift and your left rib cage will start to rotate over towards the right. Just keep your arms down, your head and your neck, and your shoulder blades. Take some deep breaths here, working on length and stretch from your armpit all the way down to your left knee. To return on an exhale, dropping the left side of your rib cage back into place first, like there's lead weights in the back of that rib. And then using those abdominal muscles to bring your pelvis and your legs back into the center. Now go to the other side, let the left knee flop, and then let the right knee flop towards it, letting the right hip lift and the right side of your rib cage rotate over. Take some deep breaths in and out here, really moving through the whole right side of your rib cage, lengthening between the armpit and the knee. Return on an exhale, drawing that rib cage back first, again like you have lead weight in it, and then using the abdominal muscles to bring the hips and the legs back into the center. Go to the right again. Breathing, expanding into that left side of the rib cage, really lengthening from the shoulder to the hip to the knee. Returning on your exhale from the rib cage first, going to the left, letting the legs flop, breathing and expanding that whole right side, and exhaling back into the center from the rib cage first. One more in each direction, going to the right with a few deep breaths in and out, and exhaling back into the middle and to the left, lengthening that right side again, and exhaling back into the center. Now roll over onto your stomach. Just rest your forehead on top of your hands. Breathe here, still thinking about pulling into the abdominal muscles and the pelvic floor on the exhales and letting your rib cage expand front, side, and back on each inhale. It's harder to maintain abdominal contraction when you're on your stomach because gravity is pulling your guts down towards the center of the earth. However, it's not impossible. Now focus on your hips and your pelvis. Make sure your hip bones and your pubic bones are heavily into the mat. And on your next exhale, contract the abdominal muscles, lengthen your right leg out behind you, and lift it up off the ground a few inches. When you get the leg up, make sure your other hip is still pushing down. Your hips are still even on the floor. Your abdominal muscles are still pulled in. And then slowly lower the right leg down. Switch to the left. Remember that as you're bringing the leg up, this exercise is not about how high your leg goes. It's about lengthening, maintaining control, and keeping the pelvis even as your leg lifts. And then lower it and switch to the right again. Keep in mind that we only have 15 degrees of hip extension, which is not a huge amount of movement. Lower the leg down and switch to the left. Again, make sure both sides of your butt are working the whole time, one to stabilize, one to move. And then just do this one more time on each leg. Breathing, maintaining the stability, feeling the length in the front of the body and the connection of the abdominals in the front. When you finish the left leg, you're going to bring your heels together. Squeeze your inner thighs from the bottom of your butt at your tailbone all the way down to your heels. And now you're going to lift and lengthen both legs. Again, make sure the hips and the pubic bones stay on the mat. You should not feel tons of strain in your lower back. You should be using your butt more than you're using your back. Breathe, keep those abdominal muscles in and lower. 2 more times, lifting up the legs, keeping them straight, long, and squeezed together, and lower. And 1 more time, lengthen and lift, and slowly lower. Now bend your right knee. Flex your foot so that your heel is reaching towards the ceiling. And now, maintaining the length in the front of your hips, maintaining even weight of hip bones and pubic bones, push that right thigh up towards the ceiling. This should be a little more intense than the last one. You might not get up as high, but focus on that stretch in the front of your thigh and the front of your hip, and lower down. Again, just stay on that right leg, press it up, breathe, and lower down. And 1 more time, press it up, and bring it down. Switch to the left, bending the knee, get the abs in, make sure both hips are evenly into the mat, and then press that thigh and that heel up towards the ceiling, only as high as you can without straining your back or lifting one hip higher than the other, and lower it down. And again, same side, left leg up, and lower. 1 more time, press it up, lower it down, straighten the leg, and push back and sit back on your heels, and just let your back rest and stretch for a second. Come back out onto your stomach with your forehead down, your arms this time down by your sides with your palms down towards the floor. Think here about reaching out towards the opposite end of the room with the crown of your head, the roof of your mouth, and your breastbone. Squeeze your buns a little bit and get those hips down into the mat, the hips and the pubic bones evenly, and the abdominal muscles really working, wrapping around the front of your body, keeping your rib cage and your pelvis connected. Maintaining even length on all sides of your torso, I want you to start to lift your head and your breastbone up off the ground slightly. Reach your head and your chest towards the wall, the opposite wall. Reach your hands and your shoulder blades towards your feet. Lift the hands, open up your collarbones, squeeze the back of your armpit. Stay long, stay lifted like Superman or Superwoman, and slowly come back down. And again, breathe in, exhale, contract those abdominals, start to lift, start to lengthen through the upper body. Keep the back of your neck long, your eyes are down towards the floor. Open up those collarbones, squeeze into the arms and the shoulders, lift your hands and reach those fingertips for your toes. Inhale and exhale and come back down. And 1 more time, like you're flying. or standing with really good posture. Inhale, exhale, contract, lift, lengthen. Inhale as you open up those collarbones, reaching those fingertips long. Take another full breath. Slowly come back down and sit back on your heels and let your back stretch. Come onto your back again. With your knees bent, the feet hip bone width apart, arms down by your sides. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, you're going to start to curl your tailbone up towards the ceiling. But this time, you're going to keep going. Curling up your tailbone, letting your hips lift, letting your ribs lift, and coming all the way up through your rib cage and your breastbone. When you get there, stay there for a few breaths. Make sure your weight first is even on your feet. Your toes are down, your heels are down, the inside and outside of both feet are down. Make sure that your rib cage is not flared up towards the ceiling, but is pulling in and down as though you were wearing a tight vest or corset. Your pelvis and your rib cage are connected here. You're getting the same length and stretch in the front of your hips as you did when you were on your stomach. Take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, start to roll back down, staying wide through your collarbones and shoulders. Exhale, drop your breastbone down, roll down and in through your rib cage, through your lower back, and all the way down to your tail. Again, inhale, exhale, curling up into your bridge, rolling through that lower back, using your glutes, your buns, and your abs, and your hamstring at the back of your leg, rolling up your spine. If you get a cramp at the back of your leg, you need to use your butt a little bit more. Getting up there, making sure the weight's even on your feet, the collarbones are open, those abdominals are working. Inhale, exhale to start to come down, dropping the breastbone, letting those ribs pull in and down, and rolling through the lower back to your tail. One more time, inhale, exhale, curl that tailbone up, rolling up through the spine, through the ribs in an undulating movement. And this time when you get up there, stay there. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, you're going to fold your right knee in towards your chest, keeping your hips even, the belly in, and lower that leg down. Switch legs, bringing the left knee in. Again, focus on keeping the shoulders open, keeping the abdominal muscles working, keeping the glutes working, and lower that leg. Switch to the right again, folding it in, keeping the hips even, tailbone even, and lower. And switch to the left and lower. And just one more time on each leg. Right knee and lower. And last time, left. Inhale to lower. Exhale, come down the spine, breastbone first, rolling through the ribs, through the low back, down through the tailbone to the pelvis. Good job. Come on to all fours, like a cat. Make sure your wrists are under your shoulders. Make sure your knees are right under your hips. As you exhale, round your spine. Drop your head, tuck your tail, pull the abdominal muscles in. Lift up your ribs and your lower back towards the ceiling. Inhale, stick your tailbone out behind you. Start to drop through your lower back, through your rib cage. Lift your breastbone up, lift your head up. Exhale, round again, dropping the head, tucking the tail. Spread your shoulder blades wide. Pull the ribs to the ceiling. Inhale, stick your tailbone out behind you. Extend through that lower back. Let the ribs drop. Lift your breastbone up. Lift your head. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. One more. Exhale, rounding the spine. Drop the head, lift the ribs, tuck the tail. Breathe, spread the shoulder blades. Inhale, stick your tailbone out behind you. Extending, dropping the lower back, dropping those ribs, lifting your chest and lifting the head. And then come back to a middle position so you're in between the two. Come all the way up to standing. And first I want you to stand against a wall where you have a little bit of space on either side for your arms to move. Bring your feet forward enough so that you can get your tailbone and your head onto the wall. Your spine should feel pretty much like it did when you were on your back in the neutral pelvis. Your lower back should be curving forward a little bit, as should your neck. Make sure those abdominal muscles are pulling in. Your weight is solidly into your feet. You're breathing, your chest is open, and you feel the connection from the base of your skull to your rib cage to your tailbone. Now, inhale, lift both arms forward. Exhale and let those arms go up overhead. As your arms move overhead, I want you to keep your abdominals contracted and pulled up and in so that your rib cage stays in the same position and the same relationship to the wall. Circle the arms out to the side, inhaling, and exhale. Inhale, lift the arms up and forward. Exhale as they go overhead. Inhale as they open out to the side, and exhale as they come down. You're going to do 3 or 4 more of these in this direction. As you're doing them, make sure that the ribs stay stable, so your arms will not necessarily touch the wall. They'll go wherever they go, keeping everything else stable and together. If you're tight in your shoulders, you may not be able to get a complete range of motion in those arms without the ribs moving. That's okay. Do a smaller range of motion, and once again, I promise you that the more stable you get in your torso, the looser you'll get in the shoulders. Reverse your direction now, coming out to the side like you're making a snow angel, and then up to the ceiling, forward and down. Again, do this movement with the inhale, exhaling as you go overhead, inhaling forward and exhaling down, focusing on stabilizing that torso, not pushing your lower back into the mat, and not moving the rib cage. Let your collarbones, your shoulder blades, and your arms do the moving here. Now move away from the wall. And you can have one hand on the wall for balance if you need to, or hold on to the back of a chair if you need. I want you to bring your weight onto your left foot, so much so that you can lift your right leg and put your right foot on top of your left one, just resting your heel against the front of your the front of your left ankle. Standing on your left leg, I want you to keep your abdominals in, squeeze your buns a little, especially at the side. Pull up into your pelvic floor and make sure your hips are even. As you inhale, I want you to let your hips slide over to the left, as though you were carrying something on your left hip, or as though you were standing at the bus stop just leaning into that whole left side, like a typewriter carriage. As you exhale, I want you to squeeze the side of your butt. I want you to pull up your inner thigh and your pelvic floor, and I want you to slide that pelvis back into the center so that you're standing up solidly on that leg. Again, inhale and let that hip slide off to the side. Exhale, squeeze and pull everything back into the center. You're not trying to tuck your pelvis or move anything forward or flatten your lower back. You're just trying to let your hips slide off to the side and pull back into the center. The work here is at the side of your butt and your glutes, where the dimple is, or where the dimple will be once you've done this for a few weeks. Do this 4 or 5 times on that left leg. And then bring your foot down, switch hands if you're holding on to something, and switch legs. Bring that left foot on top of the right foot, resting that left heel in front of the right ankle. And now the same thing here. Inhale and let your hips slide off to the right. Exhale, squeezing the outside of the hip, pulling up the pelvic floor, and coming back into the center, solidly standing on that right leg. Again, repeating this 4 to 5 times. The import of this exercise is to help strengthen the glutes, and particularly the gluteus medius at the side of the hip. This can help get rid of lower back strain, as well as some hip pain that can result from the piriformis and the other rotators taking on this job that these glutes should be doing, but may not be doing. After you've finished 4 or 5 of those, just bring both feet down to the floor and congratulate yourself because you have completed the series. You may be sore after doing this. This is a time to rest a little bit, possibly to ice or to heat, depending on what you like to do for your body. But I promise you that within 2 to 3 weeks of doing these exercises at least once or twice a day, you should be out of chronic muscular back pain and be able to move on to more activities. Good job. Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.